Hello everyone, welcome to another edition on our channel. Today we're going to continue with our scholarship reviews and we will be talking about Erasmus Mundus Scholarship. We're going to review the process of application, the tips that will make you qualify, and some of the things you would have to know even if you get the scholarship at the end of the day.
Okay, my name is Abdul-Wadud Ibrahim, and like you said, I'm from Ghana, and I'm currently a scholar of the Erasmus Mundus Joint Master's Degree Program, and I'm studying AMIR program, which is the Advanced Materials Innovative Recycling Program. And this is actually a program that is hosted in 6 countries across Europe, and the study program allows you to visit 2 universities out of those 6 countries, depending on your interest of study. So that's what the master's program is about, and it's basically just masters in materials engineering. I went to the University of Cape Coast, and during my final year I worked on recycling of plastic waste to produce pavement bricks for construction and all that. And while I was doing research for my project work thesis, I would say I was awakened to the current state of pollution and plastic waste in our environment, which is why I got interested in AMIR program, because the program is about making advanced materials through recycling processes. So that is what gave me my interest in following this study.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie, it's actually true. Going into the program, I felt like so many applications, because I read somewhere that for each individual program they can get up to 500 applicants and they only pick about 20, 30. So you can see the odds are not in your favor. And actually, when I was in first year of my undergrad, one of my seniors who was studying the same program in the final year, he actually went on to study under the Erasmus program. And he was studying nano engineering. So he was actually the one who, based on him, he gave me the motivation, because he was like, he has done it, so I can also do it, And he in particular was the one who recommended this particular program to me. I was aware of it, but then I was a bit skeptical. And then he was like, based on your interest, you should apply for this. And that's why I went into it. And I think it's scary, any master's application you do, it's scary. So why not just find one that you are very interested in and you see that you fit into it and you have a passion towards it. And that alone will make you put more effort into your application. And by doing so, you have a higher chance of applying. And if you are scared about a particular scholarship and you see it as competitive, then I think you will not apply for any scholarship. So you just have to put in your best effort and apply, and just, in as much as you might not get it, but then just picture yourself getting it. For the Erasmus Mundus Scholarship, there are different reasons for them to select you, and one of them, I have to say, is the academic qualification, which is your level of education. And it's not about the grade as much as it's about the compatibility.
Okay.
So they look at how compatible your bachelor's degree is with the master's you want to pursue. So if the gap is too much that cannot be bridged, your chances of getting accepted are very low. So it's very important to make sure that the master's program you want to read is very in line with what the study is offering.
Okay.
And then I think when it comes to the grade, some Erasmus programs are more strict than others. Some would tell you that they have a requirement of 3.0 GPA on a 4.0 scale, and others are a little more flexible. And then they also take into consideration the language proficiency. So language proficiency, the main language that this scholarship will be taught in is English. But then you might find some Erasmus programs that specify that you should be able to speak a little French or maybe Spanish or something of that sort. So the language is also another criteria that they look out for when you are eligible. And then this one is not so popular, but then nationality also counts to some extent, because due to certain issues in the past, some programs have blacklisted certain countries because some people apply with, should I say, fraudulent documents. So I think you should also look out for the nationality as well. And then that's the main criteria that you look out for. And then aside from that, any other thing that will be added would be your personal interests, maybe your past experience with leadership positions, and any other experience you have in working experience. So if maybe you have a program that might not be in line with that study program, but then you have work experience in that field, then your chances of being accepted are also high. Yeah. So the eligibility, it goes to the program that you studied first, your academic level, the grade you got, then the language proficiency, then the nationality, which is not so important sometimes. And then certain other qualifications you might have, like work from your degree certificate. Some of the documents that you might need are a CV, obviously. And they are strict on the presenting a CV that is in the European format, which is the Europass format. So you need a CV, then you need your degree certificate, you need your academic transcript showing everything that you have, and then they need a motivation letter, which shows your interest and why you want to pursue that particular program. Then they'll need recommendation letters, minimum of 2, and it's more advantageous if your referees or the people who are giving you the recommendation are academic references. For instance, maybe a professor who has taught you before. And for me personally, I had one reference from my supervisor, one of my professors, and then the other reference came from my senior I mentioned earlier, the one who recommended the program. Because as at the time I was applying for the Erasmus Amir program, he was beginning his PhD study in Australia. Yeah, so that's where I got my recommendation from. And then they also take in the language certificate. So like I said, the main language that they give the tuition in is in English. So it helps if you have an English proficiency certificate, maybe from IELTS. But then some programs will also accept an English proficiency letter from your first degree university. Yeah. And then they need photograph for identification, obviously, and then a passport if you have a passport, or any national or international document that can verify your identity. And then if you have, like I said, the work experience. So if you have any experience in a particular work industry anywhere, if you have a work certificate or a document that certifies that, yes, you have that level of experience in a particular industry, it also helps. And then any other document you have, it might be certificates from participating in certain programs. Maybe you've been overseas before, or you have a workshop or an online study, or anything, any particular skill you've achieved that has any value or any addition to your qualification. You just add it, and that's the main thing they take. So a CV, your degree, a transcript, motivation letter, recommendation letter, English proficiency certificate, photographs and identification documentation, work certificates, and then any other supporting documents you might have. So those are the main documents that they take. Then the Erasmus program is a program that provides, I should say, subsistence financial assistance to students who want to train or study abroad. And Erasmus is one of the best scholarships you can get in the world, and a lot of people are saying that. And it's also a very way for you to be integrated into so many other multicultural programs across all of Europe. And Erasmus gives you the opportunity to participate in the program and study across at least 2 countries. So you'd always have a first year in one country, another year in another country. Or you might have the opportunity of visiting more than 2 countries, having a semester in one particular European country or the other, depending on the program that you study. Like I stated earlier, some of the academic requirements that they have is, for your academic requirements, you have to have a bachelor's degree in a specified related field. That means that your study should be related to what the master's program is offering. So if For instance, I'm applying to the Advanced Materials program, and it's a recycling program, and my bachelor's program was in industrial chemistry. So having industrial chemistry in my transcript, I have courses I've taken that are similar to advanced materials because I have a background in material science, I have a background in recycling, and I have a background in chemistry as well. So these courses that I have and this program that I studied are in line with what they want. And then for the CGPA requirements too, you make sure that some of them have a minimum requirement of 3.0 out of a 4.0 scale. And other things that might make you more eligible is if you have a research article or paper or a research study you've undergone before, any research training at all, makes you also very highly qualified. And like I said earlier as well, you should have a good grasp of a good command over the English language. You should be able to speak English very well and communicate. And you should also be able to have an English proficiency certificate or any document of that sort that certifies that you can speak English or you have command over the English language. And then the nationality as well, to show the country you come from, and make sure that you are not one of the blacklisted countries that are in the Erasmus. So for the first step, you have to find a host institution or program. And for this, I would say the Erasmus Mundus program or any other scholarship as well is a time-consuming effort. You have to really take your time and be very critical about the program you choose. I mean, in as much as you want to go for a program, you also don't want to waste your time or waste your effort in your application. So you have to be very careful and very strict about how you scrutinize the program that you want to apply for. So you have to select the program and then go through the requirements, read the documents very carefully. And then you check the step 2, you check your eligibility and make sure that the bachelor's you have is in line with the requirements or whatever they need from you. And then your grades are also in par, and your transcript has some courses that are similar to their curriculum, meaning you can easily adapt to it. And then you make sure that you start the application on time as well, which is very important because the master's application, especially Erasmus, can be very time consuming. So you don't want to wait till the final minute to be applying. So you have to start very early and make sure you have all the documents up ready, and then you start applying. And then you make sure you provide all the documents in time, and then you complete your application, and then you submit it. After that, you just patiently wait for your application results, which can take from a month to 2 months. And then when the feedback comes, either you are accepted or you are not, or you are put on a waiting list. And then if you are accepted, you'd have to go through a meeting. Yeah, you have to go through an online meeting. And the meeting is purposely to verify your identity and make sure you are the one and nobody's impersonating you with your documents. And also to make sure that you are who you say you are and you know what you say you know. So for instance, if I apply with particular documents or particular statements in my CV or motivation that make them excited to meet me, and during the interview I cannot defend certain things I've said, then they'll just pass you up. They'll not give it a second thought. So you also have to make sure that you are very critical about some of the things you put in your application and make sure you don't lie or you don't put any fraudulent information there. Because if you make it through the acceptance and you get to the interview, you're not able to defend certain information you've put inside your application, then they'll just pass you up. So those are the main steps. You just look for the program that you are perfect for. You look at the eligibility criteria. Then you make sure you have all your documents. You submit your documents. You wait for your results. And as you're waiting, you're preparing for your interview the best way you can. Okay, so for my interview, I was interviewed by the faculty coordinator here in Hungary, Ms. Colt, and one of the professors in the department. So basically, based on the questions I was asked, I realized that they had an interest in my research background. Yeah, so the faculty coordinator was more interested in me verifying some of my personal information, like my name, my parents' name, maybe a name of a particular high school I inputted in my CV, maybe a certain program I mentioned. Maybe I went for a conference in my CV. She was asking what was this conference about to verify if I was not lying and if I had an idea about what was in my CV. And then I was not just putting false information in my CV. And then the professor who was with her was asking questions based on the research I spoke about in my motivation letter. So he was asking questions about the research, and then based on the question he asked, I could tell that maybe he had looked up the research, because he was asking certain technical questions to see if I had an idea about the research, and I didn't just put it out there to increase my chances. So like I said, you have to be very critical about it. So they asked personal questions, and then they asked technical questions as well. So those are the questions that they asked, and then very technical questions as well, and to also test your knowledge. And also for my application, the Erasmus Mundus Amir program, as you are submitting your online application form and before the interview, you'd have to fill an MCQ, a multiple choice question, online to test your basic knowledge, to see if you're fit as well. So you also have to prepare and make sure you know everything that goes into the application. Those were the questions that I was asked during my interview. Yeah. So like I said earlier, the selection criteria, they look at your background, which is very important as well. Because when you get over here right now with the Amir program, you meet a lot of different people who are all under the Amir program, but they all have different backgrounds. But you can see that there's always a borderline, should I say, bare minimum of our previous knowledge. There's always certain courses that we all have in general that we all share. Yeah. So that's the selection criteria. Make sure that you have a basic knowledge about the program, so that when you come, you are not stranded or you are not found wanting. Because it will be tough on you as well to come and then it's totally out of your field. For instance, if you have basic knowledge in maybe physics and you're applying to biomedical program of some sort, you'd have a lot of problems in adapting, because you are in way over your head, because it's a totally different field altogether. So you have to ensure that you are within the academic criteria, and your grades must also be up to par, like I stated earlier. And then I want to use the selection criteria to talk more about the motivation part of it. So the motivation letter is very important, and because I would say for the Amir program, they didn't take an SOP, they took a motivation letter, which was strict on certain limits like word count and submission format. And aside from your motivation letter and your CV, there's nothing else that can speak for you during your application process. So I'd say you'd have to put a lot of attention into your motivation letter, because it's basically introducing you and selling you as a product to them without you being there in person. So I think the motivation letter is very crucial, that you take your time a lot to work on and develop it very well, because it's basically a substitute for you being there. It's speaking for you and saying a lot about you. So any particular information about yourself that you feel your CV will not be able to express, that can make you a better candidate, you have to put it inside your motivation letter. Yeah, thank you. So me personally, there are certain information I put in my CV that I did not repeat in my motivation letter. For instance, let me talk about the structure of the motivation. For instance, my motivation letter I drafted in the format of past, current, and then future. Past, present, future, sorry. So basically, you talk about your past experiences in academia, then you talk about your present experience. So at the time I was filling my application form, I had just finished my national service. And at that point, I was talking about the things that I had done during my national service, which was my present. And then for the future, I was looking at certain things I was hoping to do, which is in my research and then my career prospects. And then the past, I'm looking at the reason why I became, should I say in general, a science student, or I was interested in science in the first place. And the reason why I even chose the program I did for my undergraduate, and the reason why in the future you talk about the reason why you want to apply for this program. So the motivation has to sell you, has to make you like a product in a sense, and sell you out to them. So you have to be very critical about the information you put there. And some things are there that when you put in your CV, it speaks for itself, that you don't need to repeat again your motivation letter. And like I said, the motivation letter has a limit to how many words you can put in there, how much information you can put in there. So you have to make sure that you don't repeat certain information from your CV into your motivation, because it just becomes a redundancy at a point, and you are wasting space on more interesting things you could have talked about.
Okay. Yeah. What's the wording for the motivation letter?
My motivation letter, it was 2,000 words.
2,000 words.
Yes, but it varies. It varies from program to program. Some Erasmus programs would take an SOP, a statement of purpose, and then take a cover letter.
Okay.
And others will require just an SOP, no cover letter, no motivation. And others, like the Amir program, will only take a motivation letter.
Oh. Okay.
That's why I said you have to look through the requirements very well and make sure you have all the documents you need. Because if they request for a motivation letter and you end up sending an SOP, that's a mistake on your part and it's going to go against you. For the Erasmus Mundus program, it's a Amir program. It's €1,400 scholarship a month, yeah, and it's a tuition-free program.
So for let's do that for the whole scholarship for the 2 years. You're spending 2 years, is that correct?
Yeah, 2 years.
So for the 2 years, what's the total package?
I think the total is about €33,000 or so.
Okay, so €33,000.
Yeah.
Okay. But it will be spread across. It will
2 years.
Monthly for the 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
How much is your school fee? How much is your tuition?
Okay, for the Erasmus program, it's always tuition free.
Okay, like I know you're not paying. Okay, they cover the tuition. The money that the 1,003 they're giving you is just for your monthly upkeep.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. Now I get it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, for me, for instance, they contacted me that I've moved up to the interview stage and then I should wait for an email to tell me more details about the interview. So when I got the email about the interview, they asked me about a date which should be favorable, and I was like, yeah, that date is okay. And then they gave me the platform about a week or more ahead of time to prepare, and it was via Zoom, a Zoom meeting. But then a day or two before the meeting, they sent me another email that Zoom is no longer available, so I have to do it on Skype.
Okay.
Then they gave me a time, and then I had to be punctual. I actually joined, and I was waiting for them to join. Yeah. So that's how it happened. And then after the interview, they said they'll reach out to me, and then I think that was the most nerve-wracking part of the application process, because it's kind of, at that moment, it was kind of like you're almost there, almost at the finish line. And I waited a couple of weeks after the interview, and then they sent me an email again saying that you have been accepted for the Erasmus Amir program, and we are just sending you this email to verify if you accept or not. Yeah, so that was after the interview. Then they'll ask you, do you accept this scholarship program or not? And then after you accept, that's when they start processing your documents, and then they'll send you your acceptance letter and every other document you need to process everything. Okay, so I think with the Erasmus, I would also say that sometimes when you are applying, you should also look at the country you're coming from.
Okay.
So let me give a scenario. For me, the countries I chose, the first country I chose was Hungary, and we have a Hungarian embassy in Ghana.
Okay.
So if, for instance, you choose a program and then your first country does not have an embassy in your country, that means you'd have to go outside your country to get a visa, which is also a whole struggle on its own. Yeah, so for me, one of the reasons why I chose the study track and I chose Hungary was because there was a Hungarian embassy in my country as well. And coincidentally to the program that they were offering, the track they were offering was similar to my interest as well. Yeah, so I was just happy that it worked out that way. Yeah, so with the visa application, it doesn't really make it that difficult because the Erasmus program is known to cover everything: tuition, living allowance, and traveling and everything. It covers everything, so it makes the finance part of the visa application simpler, because when you go to apply for your visa and they realize that your funding is basically by Erasmus, then they no longer ask questions about your financial situation. So some visa applications will require you to present bank details, like a bank statement, to show that you have the money to finance your study. Yeah, but then when you have the Erasmus program, that basically takes out that documents from the whole thing, so it makes it a bit easier. Yeah. wasn't difficult, and because the application was done through the Erasmus, and then Erasmus to the school didn't have any of my documents. So before arriving in Hungary, they actually requested that every single document I used in my application, I should bring it in person as well. Yeah, so when you just come, they'll just take your documents and scan it and then put you into the school system. Yeah, that's basically how the application goes. Okay, so I think when it comes to the language barrier, it's it's difficult sometimes, but then the underlying thing is just trying to make sense of everything that is going on. And when it comes to the academic aspects, I don't know how to put this. It's challenging, honestly, it's challenging to be able to understand certain things because they're not an English-speaking country, even though some of the professors do speak English, but then their English is not quite as we are used to with the accent and everything. So it makes it hard to understand sometimes. As well as the teaching style is also different. The mode of communication, the mode of teaching is also quite different, which is hard to cope with and adjust. But then at the end of the day, I think fundamentally, the important thing is to get the knowledge that is being given in the classroom. Yeah, so just as long as you pick up the concepts and understand the idea they are trying to put across in the classroom, then the studying just goes on. Okay, so for the teaching style, I would say we have, for Ghana in particular, every class you go to, the professor actually gives you slides or a handout or something of that sort. But that's over here, not all professors will do that. They'll prefer for you to make your own notes in the classroom, which is something we also do in Ghana. But then we also have, before that, you have a reference material. You have a book that will guide you throughout everything you study, reference material. So I think that's the main difficulty for me, because not all professors will provide you with a reference material for you to make references with and study with. So that's the main challenge that I think I have. But then aside from that, when you're in the class and you follow what they are doing, you get to pick up what they are trying to put across as well. Okay, so when it comes to the Erasmus, I would say if you don't try, you'll never know. Let me put it that way. Yeah, if you don't try, you never know. And I would say this, there are a lot of people who are trying so many other different scholarship programs that because there are so many they are trying, they're not able to put in their best efforts into some of them. So me, for instance, I waited for the Erasmus program because that's what I knew. I wanted the Erasmus. That's what I wanted. Yeah, so some of my colleagues were applying for the Canadian scholarships, the US scholarships, North America, South America, and all that. But then I wanted the Erasmus. So I looked through the entire Erasmus catalog, and it took a long time for me to actually find the program. So I looked through the entire catalog and I looked for the programs that I felt I had a passion for, that I was really interested in. Then I looked at their eligibility. Some of these programs, I couldn't meet their eligibility because they had more stricter recommendations. Like I said earlier, some people have applied in the past using fraudulent documents. And because of that, some countries like Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, they have been flagged for applying with fraudulent documents. So if you want to apply for certain programs, they'll tell you that you'd have to go to an embassy of the host country to get your documents certified before you can apply with those documents. So it creates an extra challenge. So what I would say is that if you actually take your time and go through the entire Erasmus Mundus catalog, look for a program that has an outline that matches with your interest. Because if you do not have an interest in the program, you wouldn't put as much effort into your application. If you're just applying for applying's sake, you wouldn't really have any deeper interest for that particular program. So I'd say take your time and look for the program that matches what you want. And an Erasmus program, you have the opportunity to apply. When I was applying, you have the chance to apply for up to three Erasmus programs at a time. So when the application is out, you can apply for up to 3 programs. So you have to take your time and look for the top 3 that you feel like you are best qualified for and you are best interested in. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of time to do all that. And you read every single information that they are giving you, because it's not just there for being their sake. but there's a reason why all those recommendations are there. And if they give you a requirement, you try as much as possible to fulfill those requirements. Because there are certain things that we might overlook, but then at the end of the day, they end up being very important. Yeah. So that's the advice I would give. Just take your time and dedicate time for that application. And like I said earlier, you have to start early. And currently the Erasmus application is open. And I think it will be open until January for some programs and February for others. That gives a lot of time. That's like 2-3 months, for you to apply, and then take your time to prepare all your documents and to have a successful application.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, the most memorable one and the most exciting is something I see every day, because I have a lot of interest in, like I said earlier, in materials and recycling. And to be able to sit in a class with people from different parts of the world who share certain similar interests and certain similar goals, it's very exciting to study in such a room. So that's one of my memorable. Okay, my main interest is in research, like I said earlier. So I think when I'm done, I'm looking into entering a research institute of some sorts, or maybe further into do my PhD, because I'm really interested in research. And then the main way to enter into research is to have a PhD in a particular field, which gives you more options for research fellowship and other opportunities. I think my main interest would be into possibly get into a research fellowship, and if I'm able to get that, then I would have to apply for a PhD in a similar program of study.